Good morning, everyone. Welcome. My name is brigitteous. I have with me today the Tetra Hearthstone. We are going to be talking about all of the new March of the Lich King cards. We're going to try to do a speed run for you guys. There are a lot of new cards, 145 new cards. So our goal is to keep each card to under a minute. Let's take a look at the Warlock class. Our first new card for Warlock is a 6 mana 4/4 Infantry Reanimator. Battlecry, resurrect a friendly undead and give it reborn.
So this card for me at 6 mana feels a little too slow, but it depends on the upside for that resurrect, which undead minion you're going to resurrect, its stats. But yeah, for me, 6 mana seems a little too slow for this card. You could be doing so much more at 6 mana. I think it'll not really see much play.
Our next Warlock card is 2 mana spell Shallow Grave. Trigger a friendly minion's death rattle, then destroy it.
This card, I really don't know how to score this card. I'm not too sure what it goes into. There is a bit of a death rattle feel for Warlock with this expansion. It's an interesting card. At 2 mana, there's a definite flexibility to it. I'd say it's a mid-range kind of card. Don't craft it on day one, that's for sure, because it is an epic. It does cost a lot, but we'll see how it plays out in the first couple days, and if it becomes a meta card, then it's probably worth crafting.
I can see this being good with either Slime Lock, there's a new Slime Death Rattle, or with Lady Darkvein, if Curse Implock continues to reign supreme, this could possibly get you more curses in your opponent's hands, but that's if they leave you space for it, which they usually don't. Our next Warlock card is 4 mana Shadow Spell Twisted Tether. Destroy a minion, give it stats to a random undead in your hand.
So I'm gonna, off the bat, say that this card will see play. It's 4 mana, destroy a minion, which is historically pretty good for Warlock. What comes to mind is the 5 mana lifesteal 3 destroy a minion card, which does see play. And although it can be slow at 5 mana. I think this is gonna see play as a card in Warlock.
I agree. 8 mana 6/6 Darkon Drathyr. Lifesteal. At the end of your turn, deal 6 damage to the enemy hero. And this is not a battle cry. This is an ongoing effect.
So this is a different version of Alexstrasza. And Alexstrasza does see play quite often as a finisher. I think this will see play.
This also reminds me a lot of Ragnaros, where you're just waiting until the end of your turn to see that condition go off, and it can happen more than once, so looks pretty fantastic. 1 mana 1/3 Devourer of Souls. Legendary. After a friendly minion dies, gain its death rattle.
I think this card is going to see play in Mine Warlock as sort of a backup scenario to the whole Tamsin Phylactery thing. Because if you play this, you play a bunch of imps, Tamsin Phylactery, and then all of a sudden, all those death rattles come onto this and basically trigger twice. It's a substitute for Tamsin in that deck, so I think it'll add some flexibility and it'll see play in that deck.
Amorphous Slime. 5 mana 5/5. Discard, Battlecry, discard a random undead. Death rattle, summon a copy of it.
So this death rattle discard synergy, I'm not too sure how to view it. I think it's going to be a little too slow. It's definitely conditional on what cards get discarded. So as an epic, I would not craft this on day one. I would see how that deck plays out. But I think there's so many other Warlock decks out there that are much better, much more powerful that I don't think this card will see much play, especially at 5 mana.
I think people might be excited about this because it seems very similar to Cube. And I know Cube Lock was very popular for a while. It's a similar mechanic. But yeah, it does seem a little bit slow. 5 mana 7/7 Savage Yimjar. Rush Battlecry, discard 2 cards.
This card reminds me of that Demon Hunter 4 mana 7/7 that's in play right now, where discards your hand and then draw 3 after it dies, which sees some fringe play. Like it's definitely well statted. If this whole discard meta plays out well, this card will see play, but it totally depends on that deck and how powerful it is.
This also reminds me there used to be a warlock deck that had a demon that would have charge and discarded cards. And there are some warlock cards that have a mechanic to give you cards back that you discarded. So we'll see if that gets used. 5 mana
Right.
shadow spell, Soul Barrage. When you play or discard this, deal 6 damage randomly split among all enemies.
I like this card at 5 mana. It's a decent board clear. Again, this whole discard synergy, we'll see how it plays out, but I think at 5 mana, it's reasonably statted to do the 6 damage.
I agree. 3 mana Scourge Supplies. Draw 3 cards, choose 1 to discard.
So for me, this is the linchpin in this whole discard meta. If this card ends up playing out well, because it is 3 mana draw 3, if you were able to select which card you can discard and get a bit of a snowball effect from that, I think that will definitely be the linchpin for this whole discard meta.
I agree. This feels really good drawing 3 for 3 mana. You're not having to life tap, you're not using your life as a resource. And often Warlock is a smaller deck just because it wants to draw through all the cards, so it's quite possible that there will be one of those 3 that you're not too sad to lose. 3 mana 2/3 Walking Dead. Taunt. If you discard this minion, summon it.
So this is the card that will work really well with the previous card, where if you can draw 3, this card happens to be one of the 3. You discard it, it summons it for 0 mana, and that's the mechanic which will get the snowball effect of this discard meta going.
Yeah, it reminds me a lot. There used to be, I think, like a 3 or 2 mana egg that if you, or spider, if you discarded it, it summoned. So, and this one has taunt. That's even better. Let's get into Hunter. 2 mana 2/3 Silver Moon Forest Strider. Battle Cry. Give all arcane spells in your hand spell damage +1.
This arcane spell damage plan that they have for this expansion has me really interested. I think we're going to see Hunter go from more so a face deck in the last 2 expansions to more of a burn deck with this card. And there's some other cards in here that also do some spell damage battle cries. I think that's what they're trying to go for with Hunter in this new expansion, is try and make it more of a burn deck. And this card definitely interests me.
And there are also minions that gain stats, I believe, if they have increased spell damage. So we'll see that a little bit later in the Hunter cards. Oh, here it is. 4 mana arcane spell, Eversong Portal. Summon 1 4/4 Lynx with Rush, improved by spell damage.
So does this mean it goes from summon 1 to summon 2? Or does it
I believe so, because in the description it says Lynx, Lynxes. So I believe each spell damage that this improves, you get another Lynx with Rush. But we'll have to see that in play. I can't remember from theory crafting. I believe it did summon more Lynxes.
Okay, well, even if it's just 1 Lynx, so you have 4 mana summon a 4/4 is definitely okay stats. If it's 4 mana summon 2 4/4s, it is excellently statted. And I think this will see play because it does have synergy with the other spell damage effects that are going on with this new expansion in Hunter.
Agreed. And it feels a little bit better than the Tame Beast, the spell that summons a 2/2, and then it increases when you earn more mana. This just automatically is a 4/4. You don't have to wait for it to improve, and you can get more Lynxes out of it. 2 mana arcane spell, Conjured Arrow. Deal 2 damage to minion. Mana Thirst 6. Draw that many cards. And for those of you who are wondering, Mana Thirst is a new mechanic. This just means how much mana you've accumulated. So you don't actually have to do anything like with the infused cards. You don't have to wait for something to die. Once you reach 6 mana or however many Mana Thirst it's specifying, then that other condition is met.
I like this because it's 2 mana, deal 2 damage to a minion. That's reasonably statted for the added effect of the draw. If you can get some extra spell damage on board, it's all of a sudden it's 2 mana, deal 2 damage, draw 2. Or if it's if you have spell damage +1, it's 2 mana, deal 3 damage, draw 3. So that's a pretty good draw engine for Hunter.
I agree. 1 mana Arcane Ricochet Shot. Deal 1 damage to 3 random enemies.
I like this card, especially with the spell damage mechanic that's going on in this expansion. Because if you can get plus one spell damage on board, that's all of a sudden 1 mana deal 2 damage to 3 separate enemies, which is great stats. This will definitely see play.
I agree. I think this could feel really great, even without the extra damage against either Implock or Relic Demon Hunter. It could feel really bad against Fire and Rage Warrior. So it will depend on the matchup. 3 mana, 3/4 Haldren Brightwing. Battlecry, give all arcane spells in your deck spell damage +1.
I'm excited to see this card in action. It'll be a great card if you get it in your mulligan, because all of a sudden every spell that's still in your deck by the time you play this card has added spell damage. So the card we just saw, the 1 mana deal 1 damage, all of a sudden is 1 mana deal 2 damage to random enemies without having any spell damage buffs needing to be played on board. I think this will be a pretty good card, and it's well statted for 3 mana.
Agreed. And thinking back to when we all first started playing Hearthstone, we would have just loved this card because it's a 3 mana and it has 1 more health than it has attack. So just based on stats, but that battle cry makes it extra juicy. 2 mana, 2/2 Shock Spitter. Battle cry, deal damage improved by your hero's attacks that game.
Well, if I'm reading this right, every time you use your hero to attack, I guess with a weapon, this deal 1 damage goes up to 2 damage, 3 damage. It's a 2 mana 2/2 to begin with. All of a sudden, if you get Battle Cry of dealing X number of damage, that's just a little extra icing on the cake. Plus, it can go face, so this might be really good in the late game.
Agreed. And if you can shuffle this, depending on whether it keeps that battle cry of the upgraded damage, if you can shuffle this with a rancher, you might be able to do a lot of burst towards the end. 6 mana 4/2 Hope of Quell Thalas. Weapon. After your hero attacks, give your minions +1/+1 wherever they are.
I like this the stats on this weapon. The 6 mana though, I think is a little too slow. Normally hunter decks, at least in previous expansions, at 6 mana you're looking to make some big time plays, whether it be a discounted beast that you're dropping on board, stuff like that. So at 6 mana, I don't know how good it is, but the 4/2 weapon is nice, and the added stats on your minions is nice.
Yeah, if you can hold this in your hand as a surprise and stick a wide board, this could be absolutely beautiful. But I agree with you, the 6 mana might make it a little bit too slow. 3 mana, 3/4 Keen Eye Spotter. Whenever your hero attacks a minion, set its health to 1.
I think this is a card. We've seen in the Paladin class, if you can reduce an opponent's minion down to 1 health, it's an easy way to get rid of really buffed minions. So this could see play as a potential board play. It's definitely a reactive tool that a player could use to try and get a large minion off board.
I agree. I think this could be excellent with the Candle Shot weapon because Candle Shot is a 1/3 cheap weapon, and I believe you're immune while you're attacking with Candle Shot. Is that right?
Yes, I forgot about that weapon.
So
this would work really well with Candle Shot.
Those could go really well together. 2 mana 2/2 Scourge Tamer. Battlecry, craft a custom zombiest.
This kind of reminds me of that Lich Death Knight hero.
Dark Rexar.
Yeah, that was a bit before my time, so I didn't have much time playing with that hero. But it's interesting to see what kind of zombies can come out of this.
Yeah, everyone loves Build-A-Bear. It's a lot of fun. Not always reliable, but it's a lot of fun. So could get some good memes out of that.
And 2 mana 2/2, we see that get dropped on turn 2 a lot of the time. So I'm okay with this card.
Arcane Quiver, 2 mana. Discover a spell from your deck. If it's arcane, give it spell damage +1.
This card I think will see play in this archetype of spell damage hunter. It is 2 mana, draw a card. and increase its spell damage. So if it is an arcane spell, so I think this will see play. This one, as an epic, I'd be more comfortable crafting this one on day one than some of the ones that we previously saw.
And there are so many arcane spells now. I wonder if we'll just see Arcane Hunter that only runs arcane spells. Could be strong. Moving on to Rogue. 1 mana Ghostly Strike. Deal 1 damage. Combo. Draw a card.
Day one, this will instantly fill into the current deck, the Miracle Rogue decks that we see with the 4 mana rushes. Sorry, the 6 mana 4/4 rushes and the Drekthar lady that gives you the weapon. Yeah, this will see play on day one.
How could you forget Draka's name?
Draka, I never played Rogue. That's the problem.
Yeah, I mean, Rogue loves combo. This would already be good if it were just deal 1 damage, but the fact that you can combo draw a card is going to help with all those miracle turns. This will be extra juicy if you draw it with Edwin. We always love cheap cards with Edwin. I think this will get a lot of play too. 1 mana, 1/2 Concoctor. Battle Cry, add a random concoction to your hand.
This is a great card for a 1 mana card. It's a 1 mana, 1/2. You drop it on 1. You put a random concoction into your hand. I'm interested to see on how these concoctions play out. But stats wise, I would keep this in the mulligan, drop it on turn 1.
I agree. I got a chance to play Concoctions Rogue during theory crafting. The concoctions have that like potions and toxins feel. So anyone who loved toxins, I think you're going to love potions as well. They're a little bit more expensive, but they actually combine, and we will talk about that when we get to them. Potion Belt, 2 mana, discover 2 concoctions.
So again, this is a card I keep in the mulligan in this new archetype of Concoction Rogue. Drop it on 2, see what you get. I'm interested to see how this Concoction Rogue archetype plays out.
This can work really well with Miracle because you can prep this and discover 2 for free. Fantastic. 2 mana, 3/2 Ghoulish Alchemist. Battlecry, your next concoction costs 0.
So what mana cheat card in Rogue does not see play? This is going to be a playable card.
I think this might replace Male Dancer in Miracle, because if we're going towards concoctions, this will make for some really juicy combos. 3 mana, 2/4 Vile Apothecary. At the end of your turn, add a random concoction to your hand.
This is not a battle cry. This is an ongoing effect. So if your opponent has this on board, I think it would be a priority to get this thing cleared.
Agreed. Even if you only get 1 concoction out of it, it's like a soft taunt. They're not going to want to leave it there. 2 mana, 1/4 Potion Master Putricide. After a minion dies, add a concoction to your hand.
This reminds me of Shadow Jeweler Hanar, just the 1/4 stats and the ongoing effect where if you don't get rid of this card, it's going to just continually generate value for your opponent.
And if you can get this on board before you drop the 6 mana 4/4s with Resh, if you're able to get those out for 0 mana, if you play 6 or more cards, this could give you 2 concoctions in 1 turn. Pretty fantastic as long as those die. 4 mana 4/4 Scourge Illusionist. Death Rattle, add a 4/4 copy of another Death Rattle minion in your deck to your hand. It costs 4 less.
This card is interesting to me. It's decently statted as a 4/4. The fact that it can mana cheat out additional minions from your deck is an added plus. Anything that does mana cheat in Rogue usually ends up seeing play.
This reminds me of that card. Wasn't there a Death Rattle card that said, "Caution, monsters behind you"? Something like that. There was another illusionist. We'll see. I think that was the Death Rattle mechanic too. 2 mana, 2/1, Rotten Rodent battle cry. Reduce the cost of all death rattle cards in your deck by 1. And it's an undead beast. We see dual class or dual type minions now.
So this is another mana cheat card for Rogue. I think this will see play in a death rattle archetype. I don't mind this card. It's okay statted for 2 mana, 2/1. It's gonna challenge something on the board and then reduce cards in your deck. I don't mind this card at all.
Plus, it has those TMNT vibes with the lime green behind the rat. Very cute. Reminds me of Shredder. Adorable.
Oh.
4 mana, 2/5, Noxious Infiltrator, poisonous. Battle cry. If a friendly undead died after your last turn, deal 1 damage to a minion.
I don't know how undead minions will fit into Rogue. There is a few undeads that we see in the Rogue class, but as far as the neutral cards go, I'm not too sure how well they're going to fit in. If we are able to find a deck that does able to bring undead into a Rogue deck, I think this will see play. At 4 mana, it might be a little slow otherwise.
And the card everyone's been waiting for Rogue. There's no mana cost to this. What's that mean? Shadow Demise, legendary spell. Each time you cast a spell, transform this into a copy of it.
No mana cost means this is an auto include in all Rogue decks. This will fit well with what's that that spell that does
everything.
Three damage and then reduce your next cost by 2.
Bone Spike.
Bone Spike, that's the one. So yeah, in these Miracle Rogue decks, if you play a Bone Spike, all of a sudden you can play this after a Bone Spike, continually to draw continual play cards, get those big undead minions from the location down, get your Draka juiced up. This is an auto include in all Rogue decks.
I mean, even if you're just using Shadow of Demise as a shadow step for the previous card that we saw that reduces the cost of your next concoction to 0, this could be a second free Ghoulish Alchemist, and you could get another potion out. Yeah, that's going to create some juicy ghosts. I think that is probably my favorite new Rogue card. Moving on to Demon Hunter. 9 mana, 9/9, Brutal Annihilin, Taunt, Rush. After this minion survives damage, deal that amount to the enemy hero.
This kind of reminds me of the 8 mana 8/8 Rush that after your minion, after your hero attacks, the minion also attacks the same target. This has, I think this is a little bit better because you can play this out on 9. If for some reason your opponent has a low statted minion on board, or even a big statted minion on board, this is going to kill that minion and send some damage phase. So I like this card. 9 mana. I don't know how viable it is, but if there's a way to get this out and possibly finish your opponent, I think it'll see play. But because it's an epic, I definitely would not craft this on day 1.
Yeah, if you're able to cheat this out, I believe there's a Demon Hunter spell that summons a demon at the beginning of your next turn. It might be good, but I agree. It might be kind of expensive to play out of hand.
It's Sigil of Summoning, I think? Or it's a 6 mana sigil that
I think
draws out.
That might be it.
Yeah.
1 mana Fel spell, Unleash Fel. Deal 1 damage to all enemies. Mana Thirst 4 with Lifesteal.
So the one big issue that Demon Hunter has had in this past expansion is it does not have very much lifesteal or way to bring life back. And so with like the current archetypes of like Fel Demon Hunter, Relic Demon Hunter, even aggro, if you're starting to use your face as a resource and get down to low health, that seems to be an issue in this past expansion. This spell here would definitely address that concern. I think this is going to be an auto include in all of the Demon Hunter decks.
And I know neither one of us is a wild main, but I think this would be absolutely beautiful in the wild deck with a minion that turns lifesteal into damage against your opponent. It could be absolutely gorgeous in OTK decks.
My boy Ilganoth right there.
Yes, Ilgi. Oh, good days. 4 mana Feldori Warband. Deal 4 damage. If your deck has no minions, summon 4 1/1 Illidari with Rush.
So the archetype they're trying to push this expansion for Demon Hunter is a deck that does not include any minions, and we're going to see a weapon come up here pretty shortly that goes towards that archetype. But this spell here, I really like. It's 4 mana, deal 4 to the enemy hero potentially, and if you play it after you play the Demon Hunter hero card, these Illidari are going to juice up your attack and send even more damage face. So I think this will definitely see play.
2 mana Mark of Scorn. Draw a card. If it's not a minion, deal 3 damage to the lowest health enemy.
I also like this card. I think the way this card will see play is if you as a Demon Hunter are able to clear minions off of your opponent's side, and then you play this card, all of a sudden it's draw a card and deal 3 face.
Yep. I know it's not fell, but it still seems pretty strong. All right, I got to play with the Soul Eater's Scythe in Theory Crafting, probably one of my favorite cards to play with. 4 mana, 4/2, start of game. Consume 3 different minions in your deck. Leave behind souls that discover them.
I am crafting this golden on Tuesday. I'm so excited for this card as a Demon Hunter main. I think it'll fit really well with this archetype that they're pushing with the no minion package. So with this card, you can pick 3 minions that you want to have in your deck. You include this weapon, all of a sudden it'll swap out those 3 minions for spells. This also gives you a bit of a cushion against disruption cards like Mutinous and that new Death Knight card Patchwork that's trying to target minions in your hand. So you keep the minion hidden within a spell, then when you're ready to play the minion, you just play the 1 mana spell first, you play the minion, and away you go. I really like this card.
I'm curious to see the interaction if someone theatars one of the souls, what they get. So that'll be an interesting science experiment. 1 mana, 2/1, Fierce Outsider. Rush. Outcast. Your next outcast card costs 1 less.
So this is another archetype they're pushing for Demon Hunter in this expansion is the Outcast archetype. I'm not a big fan of the Outcast cards that they're presenting for this archetype. I think they're going to be overshadowed with the previous Fell package with Jace and this new Demon Hunter weapon. I think that'll be the Demon Hunter deck of choice in this expansion.
I agree. I feel like that weapon is so strong. Most people are only going to want to run 3 minions in their entire deck, which will probably be Jace, Lady Sathino, and Zymox. So I don't think this would be one of the 3 cards you would choose if you're playing the weapon, and I think most people are going to go weapon. 7 mana, 5/5, Vengeful Walloper. Rush. Costs 1 less for each outcast card you've played this game.
I think this will not see much play, just because the outcast cards that we have to play with in standard right now are not that powerful compared to, again, you got the relics, you got the Fell package, you got Jace. I would not recommend crafting this card.
I agree. I bet this would be a cool cosplay. So anyone looking for a Halloween costume, this is it. 2 mana, 2/3, Wretched Exile. After you play an outcast card, add a random outcast card to your hand.
So again, outcast package not that great. 2 mana, 2/3 is okay stats. This is an epic though, so I definitely would not be crafting this on day 1.
4 mana, 3/3, Fellerin the Forgotten. Battle cry. Add a random outcast card to the left and right sides of your hand. They cost 2 less.
I don't mind this card because it does give you some mana cheat. It puts a minion on the board. I think this card might see play outside of the Outcast package, just because it does generate some cards that can be cheaper. So some of the Outcast cards that I can think of, there's definitely quite a few that cost either 2 or less. So if you play this card on turn 4, you can potentially play 2 additional cards for 0 mana. There's the one that the 2 mana draw 2 spell. The name eludes me right now, but if you generate that one, all of a sudden it's draw 2. So this could see play.
5 mana Fell Spell. Deal with a Devil. Summon 2 3/3 Fell Fiends with Lifesteal. If your deck has no minions, summon another.
So the one concern that I have with the no minion package is the ability to contest board, but I think that this spell addresses that concern quite reasonably. You play it on turn 5. You have 3/3s on board, so it's 5 mana, 9/9 in stats plus lifesteal, and it's a fell spell, so this will get recast with Jace. I think this will definitely see play.
My only concern with this is Death Knight has so much AoE that's so cheap and so strong. I don't know if 3 health is going to be enough to keep these on board to actually challenge. Moving on to Druid. 8 mana, 4/6 Crypt Keeper. Taunt costs 1 less for each armor you have.
I'm really excited to see how this armor archetype plays out in Druid. There's a legendary card that we'll be talking about in a little bit that has some synergies with armor. If you can get this down for reasonably cheap, like you could potentially play it at 0 mana. This would see play in the alignment decks because you play alignment. If you have at least 1 mana, then you can drop this after alignment for 0, and it is taunt with 4/6 stats. So I think this is a playable card in Druid.
And we've been seeing a comeback of Haternox, so this could synergize with that deck. 5 mana spell Beetlemancy. Choose one. Gain 12 armor or summon 2 3/3 beetles with taunt.
I don't mind this card. It does have synergy with the legendary card that we'll be discussing. If it's 5 mana, gain 12 armor. I think this will see play, but I'd be hesitant to craft it on day 1.
2 mana Chitinous Plating. Gain 4 armor at the start of your next turn. Gain 4 more.
At 2 mana, I like this card. This will help with the armor archetype that they're trying to push in this expansion. I don't mind this card. You're probably going to get it from packs because it is rare. I don't mind it.
I think this could synergize well with Quest. And also, it's nice that you gain 4 more at the start of your next turn. So that if someone does a lot of damage to you, you're depending on armor to reduce the cost of, for example, that taunt we just saw. You know that you're going to have some at the beginning of the next turn, that it can't all just get wiped out. 7 mana, 6/6 Underking. Rush, Battlecry, and Death Rattle. Gain 6 armor.
I think this is slow at 7 mana, and it's an epic, so I would not craft it on day 1. I think it's too slow. At 7 mana, some of the other cards that you see getting played do way more than just a 6/6 rush.
8 mana, 7/7 Anubrakan. Battlecry. Gain 8 armor. This turn, your minions cost armor instead of mana.
I really like this card. I really like the idea behind this card. It's a way of cheating out a lot of minions for mana, for armor instead of mana. Post alignment, your deck is basically free at this point. I like this card. I would definitely craft this card.
1 mana, 1/1 Lingering Zombie. Death Rattle. Summon a 1/1 disarmed zombie with Death Rattle. Summon a 1/1 zombie.
This is an auto include in all aggro druid decks. You play this on one. There's no chance that the this minion might get cleared, but then it summons another 1/1, and if that gets cleared, it summons another 1/1. So you basically get it's a 1 mana 3/3 essentially.
Hmm.
In an aggro package, this is an auto include.
I agree. When we talk about sticky minions, this is probably the stickiest minion we've ever seen. The Inception Undead.
I like the artwork behind it too. It starts off with 2 arms, and then the minion it summons has 1 arm, and then the minion that summons has 0 arms. I think that's quite cool.
GG Blizzard. 6 mana Unending Swarm. Resurrect all friendly minions that cost 2 or less.
This could be a good card in aggro druid because most minions that druid plays, or at least summons through spells, like the 2 mana 1/2s with taunt, all those cost less than or 2 mana or less. So I think this would be a good reload card for aggro druid.
It'll feel terrible if you start the game with it, but it'll feel great if you draw it once you're out of cards. It's kind of like patches, right? You never want it in your opening hand. You don't want to get it on your first draw, but it's good to have in your deck. 2 mana nature spell Wither. Choose a minion. Each friendly undead steals 1 attack and health from it.
I think this will also see play in an aggro druid package. This reminds me of Arbor Up to a certain extent, because say an aggro druid player you're playing against has a board full of minions. You're trying to count lethal in your head. You're pretty sure he won't have it. All of a sudden, he plays Arbor Up and he just murders you. This card will be similar to that effect, and it's much cheaper too. So if the undead fit well into an aggro druid package, this will be an include in that as well.
That's the card that Priest wishes it had, right? For Wig Priest. 5 mana, 5/4 Elder Nadox. Battle cry, destroy a friendly undead. Your minions gain its attack.
This is just like the last card we just showed, Wither. It's a way of just statting up your minions for one last push to lethal your opponent with an aggro druid deck. I like this card.
2 mana, 2/3 Nerubian Flyer. Battle cry, if a friendly undead died after your last turn, summon a 2/2 Nerubian.
So when I first read this mechanic of if a friendly undead died after your last turn, at first I thought it meant if a friendly minion died during your opponent's turn, but what it actually means is either during your opponent's turn or during this turn prior to playing this card. So you have some control as to what friendly minion can die. If you kill off one of your own minions during your current turn and then play this card, it'll activate this effect.
Mage. Vast Wisdom. Discover 2 spells that cost 3 or less. Swap their costs.
This card, to me, could potentially mean that you discover an Arcane Intellect and you can play it instantly, draw 2 cards. But that also means the other card that you could potentially pick would be like a 0 mana card that turns into 3 mana. So I'm not too sure how I feel about this either way. It could just be 3 mana, do nothing.
I think this could work nicely into a quest mage because it can help you discover the types of spells that you need to finish that part of the quest, which is always a concern. And instead of drawing, you're just filling your hand with something that's already in your hand. 4 mana, 3/5 Energy Shaper. Battle cry. Transform all spells in your hand into ones that cost 2 more. They keep their original cost.
This card could work well with the previous card. I don't play a lot of Mage, I will admit that, so this is kind of out of my repertoire, but I don't mind this card. This could, this is like the, what's that one spell? Deck of Lunacy, except for your hand.
Mm-hmm, exactly. So could be fun for meme decks. 2 mana, 1/3 Prismatic Elemental. Battlecry, discover a spell from any class. It costs 1 less.
I don't mind this card. It's a 2 mana 1/3. It is a discover, so it's value generation and mana cheat. If as an epic, I don't know how it would play out on turn one. I'd be hesitant to craft this on turn one, but I think it'll see play.
I just love Discover, and I think this could also synergize with Quest Mage, just because there are other classes that have frost spells. There are other classes that have arcane spells. It can help you find something super situational that you might not have included in your deck. Well, that you definitely have not included in your deck because it's from another class. 9 mana, 5/7 Grand Magister Ramoth. Battlecry, recast each spell you've cast this game that did not start in your deck.
This would be the payoff card for the spell generation cards that you see in this new expansion. Whether it sees play or not, I don't know. It kind of reminds me of the legendary from Castle Nathria, where that summons the skeletons. That one got to see some play at first, but then when decks started to be refined, it was eventually taken out of most mage decks. This card kind of reminds me of that. It depends on the cards that you generate or the spells you generate, and yeah, it's definitely not worth the stats. That's for sure. 5/7 for 9 mana.
And I'm wondering if it's talking about instances of spells that didn't start in your deck, or names of spells that didn't start in your deck, because there is the 4 mana mage spell that generates a copy of different spells that are in your deck. And so if you're able to create an extra Drakefire Amulet, if you're able to create an extra 9 mana, I can't remember the name of the spell, that casts a bunch of random spells, I'm wondering if Ramoth would recast the generated copies of those spells. 3 mana, 3/2 Arc Splitter. Death Rattle, add 2 arcane bolts to your hand.
I think this will see play because arcane bolts go face. It's okay statted, like it's a 3 mana 3/2, like that's okay. It'll challenge a minion on the other side of the board at 3 attack. But this card, if it is played, it's more so for the arcane bolts than the actual minion itself.
Agreed. Kind of reminds me of, was his name Ronan? The 7 mana 7/7 that gave you 3 arcane missiles as a death rattle. So, but this is a lot less expensive, so it could get played earlier. But again, you want the spells that come off the minion. 2 mana, 3/2 Magister's Apprentice. Your arcane spells cost 1 less.
So this is the payoff card for the arcane bolts that you generate, because all of a sudden your arcane bolts go down to 0, you send them face and kill your opponent.
It feels like a very specific Sorcerer's Apprentice.
Yes.
Didn't there used to be like a 2 mana 3/2 and she
Yeah.
discounted all of your spells by 1? This is just for arcane. 1 mana 1/2 Arcane Worm. Battlecry, add an arcane bolt to your hand.
Again, this is the arcane bolt strategy. You fill up your hand with arcane bolts, you play your Magister's Apprentice, and then you spend a lot of 0 mana spells going face.
5 mana 3/5 Vexalis. Your arcane spells cast twice.
This would be a great combo card with your Magister's Apprentice. You play, say you're on turn 7, you play this card, you play Magister's Apprentice. The Mana Thirst for the Arcane Bolts, I believe, is 6. So if you play this on 7 with the Apprentice, all of a sudden you're sending a bunch of 3 damage spells for face for 0 mana.
Or if you wait till 9 and also get Thalnos down, then you have that extra spell damage on them as well. 8 mana arcane spell, Arcane Defenders. Summon 2 5/6 golems with taunt and can't be targeted by spells or hero powers.
This seems kind of slow for today's Hearthstone. Usually at 8 mana, what you're trying to accomplish is some type of board swing where you clear your opponent's board, generate some value on your side. The fact that it's only generating two minions with taunt, no rush, no nothing. I think this is going to be too slow of a card. I don't think it will see play.
1 mana Arcane Bolt, deal 2 damage. Mana Thirst 8, deal 3 damage instead.
Okay, so it's Mana Thirst 8, not 6. I was mistaken. Yeah, this is an auto-include in the Arcane package. You build up a number of Arcane Bolts in your hand, and drop your Apprentice, ship them face, and kill your opponent.
So it looks like Arcane is going to be the big push for Mage this expansion. Moving on to Priest. 5 mana, Shadow Word Undeath. Deal 2 damage to all enemies. If a friendly undead died after your last turn, deal 2 more.
So again, this mechanic means either on your opponent's turn or on your current turn prior to playing this card. So what you could do, say if you have some undead on your side, you send them into enemy minions. If any of them die, or even if one dies, then all of a sudden this is 5 mana, deal 4 damage. I think this will see play.
0 mana, Undead Allies. After you play an undead this turn, give it Reborn.
Yeah, I like this card. 0 mana. Give your minions some stickiness. I think this will see play.
2 mana, 3/2 Mind Eater. Death Rattle. Add a copy of a card in your opponent's deck to your hand.
But we saw a similar type of card in the Nathri expansion. It was a 3 mana spell that adds cards from your opponent's hand and deck into your hand. And that
Identity
saw play.
Thief.
That's the one. That's the one I was looking for. Yeah, that saw some play. This at 2 mana. It also puts a minion on the board, an undead minion for that matter, on the board. I think this will see play.
Also reminds me of the 2/6 taunt that has Death Rattle. Add a copy of card from your opponent's hand. So could go well for priest mains who like playing the 4 mana 4/3 that actually takes the card from your opponent when you play the copy. This could be a great another card to play on that turn. 1 mana, Animate Dead. Resurrect a friendly minion that costs 3 or less.
Yeah, I like this card. It reminds me of the 0 mana spell that adds 2 minions that died back to your hand. That was a really annoying card to play against before it got relegated to Wild. This card, I think, will definitely see play.
I think this would be fantastic and Wild with Vargoth. 4 mana, 2/4 Bone Collar. Taunt, Death Rattle. Resurrect a friendly undead that died this game.
It's quite expensive for the stats. 4 mana, 2/4. Depends entirely on what minion this thing resurrects. If it resurrects a 1/1, it definitely isn't worth it. If it resurrects something that's higher statted, it could be, there could be some value there, but I think it's too expensive.
And with the stats, it'll feel really bad if someone has a Starfish.
Yeah.
3 mana, 3/3 Haunting Nightmare. Death Rattle. Haunt a card in your hand. When you play it, summon a 3/3 soldier.
I like this card. It's 3 mana, 3/3, and those typically see play. When it dies, it generates another 3/3, so it's essentially a 3 mana 6/6. I like those stats. And
Very
it's not,
sticky.
so there's undead synergies too.
4 mana, Grave Digging. Draw 2 cards. Costs 1 if a friendly undead died after your last turn.
So if you have a minion on board at the start of your turn and you send it into an opponent's minion and it dies, all of a sudden this is a 1 mana spell. 1 mana draw 2. This will definitely see play.
5 mana, 3/5 High Cultist Basilisk. Battlecry. Resurrect all friendly undead that died after your last turn.
So there's some definite value in this card. If, say, you have a board of undead minions on your side, your opponent has a board on their side, you could do a lot of trading clear off your opponent's board, play this card, and all of a sudden every minion that died on your side is reborn, and you have there's definite value in this card.
It's like a baby Nazoth. 1 mana, 1/2 Crystal Smith Cultist. Battle cry. If you're holding a shadow spell, gain 1/1.
So there's a really good chance that you do have a shadow spell in hand as a priest player. So turn one, this is a 1 mana 2/3. This could work really well in the shadow aggro packages that we've seen in recent expansions. I like this card. I think it'll see play. Definitely as a common, and you're going to be getting it in packs for sure. I like this card.
6 mana, 6/6 Sister Savalna. Battle cry. Permanently add a Visions of Darkness to your hand.
I can tell you right now, I'm already going to hate this card because my opponent play it, and then on their next turn, they're going to do some sort of freaky mana cheat and generate an infinite number of shadow spells and kill me. I'm going to hate it.
Moving on to Warrior. This expansion, we're going to see a lot of fire spells for Warrior. 4 mana fire spell, Light of the Phoenix. Draw 2 cards, cost 1 less for each damaged friendly character.
Yeah, one thing that Warrior kind of lacks is card draw. I think that this card is going to see play definitely in the Enraged decks because the whole goal of Enrage is to have damaged minions on your side of the board. So in essence, if you're playing Enraged Warrior, this is 0 mana draw 2, and one thing that Enraged Warrior currently lacks is card draw. So this will definitely be an auto include in Enraged Warrior decks.
I agree. Control Warrior uses the weapon that kills minions to draw cards, but with the Enraged Warrior, you definitely want to include the weapon that adds stats to your damaged minions, so Light of the Phoenix synergizes really well with that. 2 mana Blazing Power. Give a minion 1/1, repeat for each damaged friendly character.
This reminds me of the Warlock location, where if you have a certain number of imps on board, you can buff one of them up. It's basically that for Warrior. So if you have a board full of damaged minions, all of a sudden you play this card on one of the damaged minions, and it potentially adds +7/+7. Oh, it's character, so it can be +8/+8.
Because
No,
you're the
9,
hero.
9.
Oh, yeah, because it gives the original. I'm thinking of the nerfed Warlock location. So, yeah, this is like the unnerfed Warlock location.
Yeah,
That
so
is really
yeah,
scary.
2 mana 9. Yeah, 2 mana +9/+9. That is
Oh,
scary.
ouch. 4 mana Sunfire Smithing. Equip a 4/2 sword. Give a random minion in your hand +4/+2.
Stats wise, I like this. We see a lot of 4 mana 4/2 weapons. This has the added effect of buffing up a minion in your hand. With any luck, the minion in your hand that it buffs could have charge. So I think this would be a good card to play in a charge warrior deck, or even some of the enrage warrior decks, because it's just added stats that are going to eventually go face.
1 mana 1/3 Sun Fury Champion. After you cast a fire spell, deal 1 damage to all minions.
So this area effect on a minion always tends to see play in Hearthstone. So you drop this on one, say, or even later on in the game, it's a potential board clear. I like this card.
And this is the bread and butter of Enraged Warrior, right? You deal 1 damage to all minions. So this is taking the place of Whirlwind and allowing you to use that warrior weapon to give stats to all the minions on your side of the board.
It's like a risky skipper.
Exactly. 4 mana legendary 4/4 Thori Balor. Rush, Death Rattle, go dormant. Cast a fire spell to revive Thori Balor. Revives 2 times.
I like this card. This is definite synergies with all the new fire spells that warrior is getting in this expansion. Plus it's rush, so it kind of reminds me of the Rat King actually.
Yep, and there are so many fire spells for warrior now. You will definitely be able to revive this twice, as long as you meet those out. 4 mana, Last Stand. Draw a taunt minion, double its stats.
This card is interesting because we are getting some support for this card in this new expansion. There's some taunt minions that are reasonably well studded. All of a sudden, if you play this card and those taunt minions are doubled in stats, that could potentially be like a 12-16 on your side of the board or something to that effect.
5 mana, 4/5, Disruptive Spellbreaker. At the end of your turn, your opponent discards a spell.
This card definitely interests me. Disruption cards typically do see play in Hearthstone. So if you play this card, this is one of those cards that your opponent has to address. They can't just let it stick on board because it could potentially remove a spell that you need for a combo or something. So I think this will see play.
And there are so many great spell cards coming out. I'm curious to see if this becomes the MVP of people's loathing and possibly replaces Elucia or Theotar for one of the most hated cards in the game. Because if it makes you discard a spell that you're really counting on that next turn, that could feel really awful. And it's at the end of each turn, so it's also like a soft taunt. If your opponent is playing spells that they want, they're going to want to get rid of this. 3 mana, 3/3, Asphodon the Grand Shield. Battle Cry. Cast a copy of the last spell your opponent played.
I don't know how I feel about this card because Warrior in general has its very own strategy, and they play cards that play into that strategy. And this is entirely dependent on the last card that your opponent played. So it could do absolutely nothing for you, or it could do something amazing potentially. It's really hard to say. As a legendary, I don't know if I would craft this on day one.
I agree. To me, this feels a little bit weird as a warrior card. It has almost more of a rogue or a priest vibe to it.
Mm-hmm.
2 mana fire spell, Embers of Strength. Summon 2 1/2 guards with taunt. Mana thirst 6, give them +1/+2.
This is basically identical to the spell in Druid where it's 2 mana, draw one, play 1/2s with taunt. There's an added effect of giving them an extra buff, and I do know that card sees play in Druid, so this card will most likely see play in Warrior.
Look at the tiny turtles.
That's the one.
6 mana, 4/8, Silver Fury Stalwart. Taunt, Rush, can't be targeted by spells or hero powers.
So this would be a good card to synergize with that previous spell that doubles draws a taunt minion and doubles its stats. Because all of a sudden this becomes a 6 mana 8/16 that your opponent potentially cannot deal with because they can't target it with spells or hero powers. And because it has taunt, any opponent's minions have to attack into this one, and this has rush too. So like, I think this is reasonably stated as a 6 mana 4/8. I think if you pull it off of the spell and it's a 6 mana 8/16, it will definitely see play.
On to Shaman. 4 mana shadow spell, Prescience. Draw 2 minions for each that costs 5 or more. Summon a 2/3 spirit with taunt.
Those cards would be played in a big shaman package that runs a bunch of big minions, and it's got that added effect of summoning the 2/3s with taunt. I think this is a playable card.
Is that prescience or pre-science?
I think it's pre-science.
10 mana shadow spell, From the Other Side. Summon a copy of each minion in your hand. They attack random enemy minions, then die.
Every time I see this card, it reminds me of that Adele song.
Oh no, it makes you want to cry.
What? Hello from the other side.
Okay.
Uh, I don't know how I feel about this card at 10 mana. It would definitely be part of a big shaman package. Other than that, I'm not too sure where exactly it would see play.
Seems kind of expensive. 8 mana, 3/8, Taunt, Lifesteal, Reborn. Death Rattle, deal 3 damage to a random enemy.
This one I think is too expensive. Usually with when you get to 8 mana, you're trying to do board swings, trying to recover if your opponent has stolen board, and a card like this does none of that. It just puts a bunch of stats on board. I don't think this will see play.
9 mana, 6/8, Overlord, Drakuru. Drakuru, yep. Rush, Wind Fury. After this attacks and kills a minion, resurrect it on your side.
So this is the kind of card you're playing later in the game to try and steal back boards. So if you have an empty board and your opponent has a couple of big minions, all of a sudden you play this. It attacks and kills those two big minions. They get resurrected on your side of the board. You've swung the board. So that's what you're trying to accomplish late in the game with these big mana minions.
A beautiful minion to rush this into would be the 6/6 that has lifesteal against the enemy hero at the end of each turn. That would be your opponent crying. 5 mana, 2/2, Harkener of Dread. Taunt, Death Rattle, summon a 6/6 undead with taunt.
This card I think will see play just because of the added stats of the 6/6 and the fact that it has taunt. Um, yeah, I don't mind this card. At 5 mana, it does feel kind of expensive at first, but after you summon that 6/6 with taunt, I think this is an okay card.
1 mana, 1/3, Scourge Troll. Death Rattles given to this minion trigger twice.
Typically, all 1 mana 1/3 minions see play. I don't mind this card at all.
3 mana, Shadow Spell. Shadow Suffusion. Give your minions Death Rattle. Deal 3 damage to a random enemy.
Yeah, I like this card. There's been similar cards that we've seen in Hearthstone where you add a Death Rattle that does some damage. I don't mind this card either. I think this is a good card.
This feels a lot like Mindlock.
Oh, it says enemy, not enemy minion. So this could go face too.
It could go face.
Yeah, this will be a good card.
5 mana, 3/6, Undead Murloc Rotgill. Battle Cry, give your other minions Death Rattle, give your minions +1/+1.
This is an auto include in the Murloc Shaman decks. It will be so annoying to deal with when it buffs up the other minions that you're trying to kill. So all of a sudden, your opponent, if they're playing Murloc Shaman, they stick a board. They play this card. They can start trading in if they need to with minions on your side, and then all of a sudden, every minion they trade in buffs their other minions, and it could snowball quite quickly.
I'm really looking forward to hearing Rotgill's voice line. 2 mana, Shadow Spell, Death Weaver Aura. Give a minion Death Rattle, summon 2/3/2 zombies, overload 1.
Yeah, I like this card. It makes a minion quite sticky. This could work well in different archetypes within Shaman. You could even put this on a Murloc Shaman if you wanted to. It'd be not too bad. Yeah, I don't mind this card.
And this would work great with the 1/3 we just saw where the Death Rattles happen twice.
Oh yeah. I just realized that you play that 1 mana minion on one, play this on turn 2, all of a sudden you could potentially have 4 3/2s on your board by turn 3.
3 mana, 3/2, Unliving Champion. Battle Cry. If a friendly undead died after your last turn, summon 2/3/2 zombies.
Yeah, I really like this mechanic that they're trying to push, where if a friendly undead dies after your last turn, I like the wording of that. I like the effect of that. What it can do is generate a lot of value on your side. So honestly, every card that we've seen this effect on during this expansion, I've really liked so far. I think this is we'll see play.
All right, moving on to neutral cards because we're going in order in the card collection. We'll get back to the other classes after these neutrals. 2 mana, 2/3 Bone Flinger. Battle cry of a friendly undead died after your last turn. Deal 2 damage.
Yeah, I like this card. I like it in aggro decks. If you play a minion on one, you can play this on two after you trade that minion into an opponent and deal an extra 2 damage. So it's a 2 mana 2/3. It's decent statted. It's got the added effect of dealing 2 damage, which could go face as well. Yeah, I like this card.
4 mana, 4/4 Plague Spreader. Death Rattle, transform a random minion in your opponent's hand into a Plague Spreader.
I don't think this card will see play. Typically, we've seen other cards like this where it transforms a minion into something else, and that has that ongoing effect. They're fun in meme decks, but they don't really see much competitive play. As an epic, I would not craft this on day one.
2 mana, 2/2 Vrykul Necrolite. Battle cry, summon a friendly minion. Death Rattle, summon a 2/2 zombie with rush.
2 mana 2/2 is decent, and the added effect of giving a friendly minion this death rattle is also good. You would definitely see this in aggro decks. Like I'm thinking maybe if an aggro undead druid deck becomes a thing, you'll probably slot this into a deck like that.
3 mana, 2/4 Nerubian Vizier. Battle cry, discover a spell. If a friendly undead died after your last turn, it costs 2 less.
I've already seen this card see play in the theory crafting streams. I think this is going to be a really strong card. Anything with discover, like Bridget already said, there's definite value in that. And the mana cheat is also a bonus. So if you can on at the beginning of your turn, if you can trade an undead minion, kill your own undead minion. This would be a good card to see play in Death Knight because you can use your hero power to summon a ghoul. All of a sudden it dies after it attacks. Then you play this card and it's a 3 mana 2/4 discover a spell and reduce its cost by 2.
5 mana, 4/6 Tenacious Sandlion. Lifesteal, whenever this attacks, deal 2 damage to the enemy hero.
At 5 mana, I don't know how I feel about this card. It could be a little too slow. The lifesteal is nice. This could see play.
This kind of reminds me of Fine, I'll wand. What was that guy? The 1/8 that had the when you used your hero power, it healed you for 2. I'll look that up later. 3 mana, 3/4 Drakari Embalmer. Battle cry, give a friendly undead reborn.
Yeah, it's good stats. 3 mana 3/4 gives a friendly undead reborn. That's an added benefit. I don't mind this card at all. I think it could see play.
2 mana, 5/5 Incorporeal Corporal. Say that 5 times fast. After this minion attacks, destroy it.
At first, when I saw this card, I didn't like it, but then I watched a bit of Meaty's streams, and the way he describes it, it's literally 2 mana, send 5 damage face, and I think that makes this card okay.
I agree. It feels a lot like Mind Blast, but it's neutral and it's a minion. 1 mana, 1/2 Arms Dealer. After you summon an undead, give it +1 attack.
Yeah, I like this card. It would definitely fit in well to an aggro deck. Just getting the extra attack damage down. I like this card.
6 mana, 4/6 Shatter Skin Gargoyle. Taunt, Death Rattle, deal 4 damage to a random enemy.
I think this is too expensive. I don't think it'll see play.
3 mana, 4/3 Brittle Skin Zombie. Death Rattle, if it's your opponent's turn, deal 3 damage to them.
So does that deal 3 damage to the opponent?
I believe so.
Yeah, I don't mind this card then. It's a card that your opponent would want to avoid attacking into on their turn.
Mm-hmm.
So it does make this minion kind of sticky, and if it keeps going face for 4, it's a win. If it gets killed on your opponent's turn, it goes face for 3 anyways. So I don't mind this card.
Reminds me a lot of the Warrior, I believe, card that used to be a 3 mana 4/3. If it was your opponent's turn, you gained armor. Has that same vibe.
Mhm.
5 mana 5/4 Infectious Ghoul. Death Rattle. Give a random friendly minion Death Rattle. Summon an Infectious Ghoul.
Okay, so it's got some stickiness to it. Um, this is an okay card. I don't mind this card. If it does get, it reminds me of Greybow a little bit.
Yeah,
Where
your opponent's going to want to pick off all of your other minions before getting rid of this, so it makes it more difficult for them to clear your entire board.
Yep.
9 mana 4/8 Flesh Behemoth. Taunt. Death Rattle. Draw another undead and summon a copy of it.
I think this is far too expensive. I think you're wanting to spend 9 mana on much better things, and this could potentially just draw you a 1 mana 1/1. So this card will not see play.
It'd have to be in a very big deck, like a big minion deck.
Mm-hmm.
1 mana 0/2 Foul Egg. Death Rattle. Summon a 3/3 undead chicken, which I can tell you guys is adorable. It looks a lot like a vulture.
This reminds me of Nerubian Egg, which sees a lot of play in hand buff decks, buff decks, stuff like that. It's got some stickiness to it. I think I like this card.
I got a chance to play Foul Egg in Theory Crafting, in Paladin, Buff Paladin. It works really well with, I believe it's Liadrin. She gives Divine Shield and Rush to minions you summon that have less attack than she does. So if you're able to get the hand buff Bannerman out, this can be really great. 2 mana 3/1 Umbral Geist. Death Rattle. Add a random shadow spell to your hand.
This card I like. I don't mind this card. It's a 3/1, so it's got some decent attack. It's something that needs to be addressed by your opponent. The fact that it generates a spell is quite nice. Depending what the spell is, of course. The fact that the spell is random. If it was a discover a shadow spell, I think it would see much more play. But because it's random, I don't think it'll see as much play.
1 mana 2/1 Banshee. Death Rattle. Give a random friendly undead 2/1.
Yeah, so if aggro undead druid becomes a thing, this will be one of the cards to include in it.
6 mana 6/6 undead neutral legendary Bone Lord Frost Whisper. Death Rattle. For the rest of the game, your first card each turn costs 0. You die in 3 turns.
So either way, this card is going to finish games. I would love to see this card get generated, this minion get generated off of the Scourge spell for Death Knight. I think it'll add an extra bit of spice to games if it does that. I like this card. I like the flavor of this card. Would I include it in a deck that I'm running? I don't know, but to see it randomly generated, I think will add a bit of chaos to games. So I like the flavor of this card.
3 mana 2/5 Hawkstrider Rancher. After you play minion, give it 1/1 and Death Rattle. Summon a 1/1 Hawkstrider.
I like this card. I think this is going to be a good card for aggro types. It reminds me kind of a little bit of that Kolkar Pack Runner that gets played in Hunter, but whereas instead of generating a 1/1 with Rush, you're adding a little extra stickiness to your board. So I think this card will see play.
2 mana 2/2 Coroner. Battle Cry. Freeze an enemy minion. Mana Thirst 6. Silence it first.
I like this card. I think it's got some good mechanics to it. At the end of the day, it's a 2 mana 2/2, which typically do see play if they have some sort of added effect to them. Uh, for this, I like the fact that it's a freeze the minion after it gets silenced, because if it did both effects at the same time, I think the freeze would also get silenced. So it would be a good way to address a big minion or a buffed minion on the opponent's side of the board. And
And
because
it,
it's a
it
minion,
seems like it's going to work really well into control decks.
yeah, and because it's a minion, it doesn't have to worry about those effects where it's like cannot be targeted by spells or hero powers.
5 mana 4/4 Translocation Instructor. Battle cry, choose an enemy minion, swap it with a random one in their deck.
This reminds me of what's that 5 mana 3/6 that does the trades a
Vol'jin.
minion? Yeah, Vol'jin, that's the one, and that sees some play as a tech card in decks. So I think this card would see play from the same respects of being a tech card to include in certain decks.
Yeah, good card for disruption and stall decks. 4 mana 4/4 Silver Moon Armorer. Rush, mana thirst 7, gain 2/2.
Yeah, so because it's a rush, I think this will see play. It's got that added effect. So if you're at turn 7 or later, it's a 4 mana 6/6 with rush. I don't mind this card.
She was already good without the mana thirst, but the fact that you could get a 6/6 with Rush if you wait a little bit longer or if you draw her later just makes her that much better. 3 mana 4/5 Bloodied Knight. At the end of your turn, deal 2 damage to your hero.
Part of me thinks that if Quest Warlock comes back, this is going to be one of the cards that gets included in those type of decks. It's got really good stats. It's a 3 mana 4/5. So if it can be played early, even if it does a bit of damage to your own hero. I think it'll be. I think they'll see play. If that Warlock Quest comes back, this will be one of the decks that brings it, or one of the cards that brings it back.
3 mana 3/3 Amber Whelp. Battle cry, if you're holding a dragon, deal 3 damage.
I'm surprised this isn't a Paladin card.
You know, it looks like a paladin card.
Yeah, so this will be a card in Paladin if Dragon Paladin becomes a thing.
4 mana 3/6 Sanctum Spellbender. Whenever your opponent targets another minion with a spell, redirect it to this.
So I don't think this card will see much play, with one exception. If Naga Priest continues to be a thing on ladder, this would instantly kill Naga Priest.
Oh yeah, that would be a cry and uninstall.
Yeah.
3 mana 3/2 Crystal Broker. Mana thirst 5. Summon a random 3-cost minion. Mana thirst 10. Summon an 8-cost minion instead.
This card I don't think will see much play. There's definite value if you get to 10 mana, but the trick to that is having to stay alive long enough to get to 10 mana. So I would not craft this card on day 1.
3 mana 2/2 Silver Moon Arcanist. Spell damage +2. Battle cry. Your spells can't target heroes this turn.
So I think this card will see play in the Demon Hunter weapon decks, because Demon Hunters run so many Fel spells that don't necessarily target face. Like Fel Barrage is one example. So if you can play this card, play a couple Fel Barrages, all of a sudden it's dealing 4 damage twice potentially to face. So I think this card would definitely see some play.
3 mana 3/3 Enchanter. Enemy minions take double damage during your turn.
This reminds me of that one Morg Artificer where it's double damage from spells. It kind of reminds me of that, but I think this this card does. It's not necessarily spell damage. It can be anything. So if a minion trades into a minion, they take the enemy minion takes double the damage.
Well, and it's only targeting enemy minions, so your side of the board is safe if you do AoE with this.
Okay. Yeah, I don't mind
Safer.
this.
Safer.
Safer.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you're fighting for board, or if you're trying to regain board from an opponent that has better stats than you, this could be a swing card. Would I craft it on day one? It being an epic, I don't know. But I don't mind this card.
We saw a lot of this during theory crafting. 2 mana, 2/2 legendary. Alistair Bloodsworn, Battlecry. Add Alistair the Protector to your hand. Mana Thirst 4, deal 2 damage. Alistair the Protector has Battlecry. Add Alistair the Flamebringer to your hand. Mana Thirst 7, gain 5 armor. And Astalor the Flamebringer has Battlecry. Deal 8 damage, randomly split between all enemies. Mana Thirst 10, deal 8 more. A lot going on with this card.
I've heard so many people complain about 50% of decks containing Renathal and Denathrius, and I think we're going to have the same. I don't think it would be a problem, but it definitely be a talking point that a good percentage of decks will be running this card. This is a great card.
And, everyone loves a good brand turn. Astalor is a great brand card to run, because you could either get 2 copies of Astalor the Protector, or you could get 2 copies of Astalor the Flamebringer as like a later finisher. 3 mana, 5/4 Scourge Rager, Reborn Battlecry, die.
I like the text on this. It's a 3 mana 5/4, so it's good stats. The reborn effect is what kind of saves this card. So basically, when you summon this card, it's a 3 mana 5/1. But if you're running this in, say, a Death Knight, it gives you an extra corpse right off the bat. So it's 3 mana, add a corpse, and give yourself a 5/1.
And it could synergize well with the Death Rattle taunt that we saw that brings back to life one of your undead that died earlier. Then it would actually come back as a 5/4. 3 mana, 2/5 Silver Moon Sentinel. Taunt, Mana Thirst 8, gain 2/2 and Divine Shield.
Yeah, I like this card. It's got decent stats. It's a 3 mana 2/5 with taunt. If you play it later in the game, it's all of a sudden a 3 mana 4/7. Sorry, with Divine Shield. So it's got good stats for the early game. It gives you that added bonus late game. I like this card.
This is another neutral that feels like a Paladin card.
It does feel like a Paladin card.
4 mana, 2/2 Street Sweeper, Battlecry, deal 2 damage to all other minions.
I like this card too. It's a potential board clear. It's a way to fight for board. It adds a 2/2 body after the effect. I don't mind this card. Plus I like the little broom with the eyeballs.
I know. I was thinking the same thing. So cute. 8 mana, 5/5 Legendary Undead Beast, Invincible, Reborn, Battlecry, and Death Rattle. Give a random friendly undead 5/5 and taunt.
So this card has already seen play in the theory crafting. I like this card and the effect that it has, giving a friendly minion taunt and the extra stats. The Death Rattle is less reliable than the Battle Cry, but there's enough flavor to this card that with its Reborn and its Battle Cry and its Death Rattle, that I think it'll see play.
And this could be really good, again, with that taunt that brings back a undead when it dies. And, I mean, it's the cutest death roll ever. 2 mana, 2/1 Infected Peasant. Death Rattle, summon a 2/2 undead peasant.
I think this will also see play in aggro decks. It's very sticky. If you deal with the 2/1, it summons a 2/2. With that I would assume have the undead tag on it. So I think this will see play.
Reminds me a lot of Hunter's Baddie Guest, where the minion that you're summoning is actually better than the original minion. 7 mana, 7/7 neutral legendary, Lorthamar Theron. Battlecry, double the stats of all minions in your deck.
So this card I think is going to be another hand buff card, probably for Paladin, something like that. I don't think it'll see play in all classes, but I think there's going to be certain classes that'll definitely take advantage of its effect.
I got a chance to play a deck that included this card during theory crafting. It felt very slow. However, I saw someone play it in Druid. That felt a lot better in Ramp Druid because you get to play it so much earlier, which means more of the existing cards in your deck will get that buff. Probably the talk of the town. 9 mana, legendary holy spell, the Sunwell. Fill your hand with random spells, costs 1 less for each other card in your hand.
So I play a lot of Alignment Druid, and this feels really good if it's randomly generated off of the Planted Evidence, because you get that mana cheat, and you can usually play it. Like, say if you have a reasonably sized hand and around 5 mana or so, you play Planted Evidence, you can get this down to 0 mana or very little mana, play it on the same turn, and then after you play Alignment, all those cards that you generated go down to 1 mana. I've had a lot of fun playing this in Alignment decks.
Feels very meme. It's not reliable, but it's a lot of fun. 3 mana, 2/4 Sun Fury Clergy. Battlecry, restore 3 health to all friendly characters. Mana Thirst 6, restore 6 health instead.
It's got okay stats for 3 mana. The health restoration could be a big deal, especially late in the game if you're healing for 6 mana. This feels like a Warlock card or a Paladin card to me.
Really does. Speaking of Paladin, moving on to Paladin. 4 mana, 4/4 Daring Drake. Rush, Battlecry. If you're holding a dragon, gain 1/1.
Yeah, I like this card, the fact that it has Rush. If you can play it as a 4 mana 5/5, because odds are if you're playing this card, you're playing it in a Dragon Paladin deck. It's a 4 mana 5/5 with Rush, which is great stats. It's a way to fight for board. I like this card.
1 mana, Flight of the Bronze. Discover a dragon. Mana Thirst 7. Summon a 5/5 Drake with Taunt.
Yeah, anytime you have a cheap Discover card, this reminds me of the Draconic Studies that we used to see in Priest, where it was a 1 mana Discover a Dragon. If you get to turn 7, you get that added effect of getting the 5/5 Drake with Taunt for just 1 mana. I think this is a really good card.
Agreed. 4 mana, 3/5 Time Warden. Battlecry, until the end of your next turn. Dragons you summon gain Taunt and Divine Shield.
Yeah, I like this card. It's a good card early. Like, you can play it on turn 4, and then on turn 5 you could plan to play either maybe 1 dragon or multiple cheaper dragons. Give them that extra buff of the Taunt and the Divine Shield. I think this is a good card.
7 mana, 8/8 Legendary Dragon Anachronos. Battlecry, send all other minions 2 turns into the future.
So this is the Scab's Hero card for Paladin. It'll clear the board and
temporarily.
I think what will happen though, because if you play this on 7, it completely clears the board for your opponent. Your opponent's going to have to play minions to try and address this 8 minion, like this 8 attack, 8 health minion that you just played. And say, for example, it puts minions on the board over the next 2 turns. When those disappeared minions come back, I think what happens is if there's no board space for them, they just die.
The other unfortunate thing about Anachronos, when I was theory crafting, I was playing Hunter. Hunter has a lot of wild seeds right now. I think when my wild seeds came back, they were dormant again. So I had to wait even longer for them to proc, and that felt really terrible. 1 mana, Feast and Famine. Give your hero +3 attack this turn. Mana Thirst 4, and Lifesteal.
Yeah, I like this card. This is a cheap way to potentially get some health back if you are a paladin. Yeah, we've seen similar cards see play in the past. Yeah, I like this card.
3 mana Holy Spell, Seal of Blood. Give a minion 3/3 and Divine Shield. Deal 3 damage to your hero.
So this would be a good card in some of those hand buff paladin cards or decks. Sorry, dealing 3 damage to your own hero in the paladin class is no big deal. Paladin usually has numerous ways to make that back up, so I think this is a good card.
Holy mackerel! 1 mana 2/1 Sanguine Soldier. Divine Shield, Battle Cry, deal 2 damage to your hero.
Yeah, I like this. It's sticky because it's a 1 mana 2/1, but it has Divine Shield, so your opponent's going to have to attack into it twice to try and deal with it. The 2 damage to your own hero, again, in Paladin is usually not a big deal to make up. I don't mind this card. I like this card.
6 mana 5/5 Blood Crusader. Battle Cry, your next paladin minion this turn costs health instead of mana.
This is an interesting card. At 6 mana, it's a way of cheating out possibly a larger minion. So this could potentially be Battle Cry, 6 mana, play Denathrius. So there's some definite upside to that. There's some definite downside too because it does cost mana instead of health. It's interesting.
It's also another way to early cheat out Anachronos. 2 mana Holy Spell for Kel'Thalas. Give a friendly minion +3 attack. Give your hero +2 attack this turn.
Yeah, I like this card. This is another buff card for Paladin. 2 mana, add 3 attack to a minion. It's a holy spell, so it can get tutored out by the one mana 1/1 knight. I forget the name of it. But yeah, I like this card.
And it can also get decremented by Cariel. Little Cariel. 2 mana 3/2 legendary Blood Matriarch Liadrin. After you summon a minion with less attack than this, give it Divine Shield and Rush.
Does this work with the hero power if you were to summon your 1/1 with the hero power?
I believe so, because the verbiage says summon, not play.
Okay, yeah, there's definite value in this, and it's an ongoing effect. It's not a battle cry. So if you play this on 2, it's something that your opponent has to deal with.
And I got to play Liadrin during theory crafting. I played the Sinful Sous Chef to get a lot of 1/1 Silverhand recruits into my hand. And then I had a really nice turn where I played Liadrin and a bunch of Silverhand recruits. They all got rushed. They all got Divine Shields. And it would have felt even better if they had gotten buffed by Bannerman. So great for hand buff rush. And on to what we've all been waiting for, saving the best for last, the new Death Knight class. 7 mana, 7/7 undead, triple blood, Alexandros Mograine. Mo problems. Someone's a Jay-Z fan. Battle Cry for the rest of the game. Deal 3 damage to your opponent at the end of your turns, plural.
So this is an ongoing effect after the card is played every turn for your opponent. I think this card will put your opponent on a clock. And for a blood deck in Death Knight, I think this is a really good fit because blood Death Knights have a way of keeping themselves alive, healing. They're more of a control deck, so if you can just outlast your opponent, this is just one of those cards to help bring your opponent down in health and eventually kill them.
Yeah, good finisher. 8 mana, 5/5 undead, triple blood, Soul Stealer. Battle Cry, destroy all other minions. Gain 1 corpse for each enemy destroyed.
So this is a twisting nether with a body. This will see play.
8 mana, 8/8 undead, single blood, Bone Guard Commander. Taunt, Battle Cry, raise up to 6 corpses as 1/2 Risen Footman with Taunt.
I was watching some theory crafting, and this was a card that that saw play. The taunt is quite nice. It kind of reminds me of the druid card that summons the 1/5s with taunt. That can be
Mm-hmm.
really annoying.
Yeah,
I don't mind this card. I like this card.
3 mana, 3/2 weapon, single blood, Soulbreaker. After your hero attacks and kills a minion, gain 2 corpses.
Yeah, I like this card. I like this as a weapon. It's a 3 mana, 3/2, 3/2 weapons. See a lot of play in Hearthstone. It's a corpse generation machine for your side of the board. Yeah, I like this card.
2 mana, 2/3. What's the green again? Unholy?
Unholy, yeah.
Double Unholy Necrotic Mortician. That sounds disturbing. Battle Cry: if a friendly undead died after your last turn, discover an unholy rune card.
So it's a 2 mana, 2/3. It's got a discover effect, which is very easily tutored out with this card. So I think this card will see play.
3 mana, 3/3 single unholy legendary Blightfang. Battle Cry: infect all enemy minions. When they die, you summon a 2/2 zombie with taunt.
Yeah, this is a really good swing card. If your opponent has board and you're trying to take it back, you can play this card and play some kind of board clear after it, and then all of a sudden you have you've cleared your opponent's board. You've generated a bunch of 2/2s on your side. I think this card will see play.
3 mana, 3/4 mech single unholy meat grinder. Battle Cry: shred a random minion in your deck to gain 3 corpses.
I think this is the only Death Knight card I would not recommend crafting. It's an epic, which can be quite expensive, and it's also a bit of a gamble if you play it. It could generate good value if it just consumes like a 1 mana undead from your deck, but it could consume Alexandros Morgraine or something that like one of your win conditions, and so it's definitely a gamble if you play it.
I agree. It feels like one of those cards that might sit in your hand for a really long time until you meet some condition of drawing whichever cards you don't want it to shred. So, very variable. 3 mana, 3/4 single frost acolyte of death. After a friendly undead dies, draw a card.
Card draw is always good. 3 mana, 3/4s are typically good in Hearthstone. I think this is a decent card to play and keep in your decks if you're looking for something to fill out a remaining spot. I definitely wouldn't build my deck around it, but it's an okay card.
2 mana spell, triple blood, vampiric blood. Give your hero +5 health. Spend 3 corpses to gain 5 more and draw a card.
So the important thing to note with this card is it says give your hero health, not restore your health to your hero. So when this card is played, you can actually gain health beyond your starting total, similar to the Renethal effect.
5 mana double blood, shadow spell, corpse explosion. Detonate a corpse to deal 1 damage to all minions. If any are still alive, repeat this.
This is a wonderful board clear if you have the corpses in your stockpile to consume all the health of the largest minion that's on board. So it's good if you have the corpses. If you say don't have enough, like say for example you're playing a Naga priest and they have one of those big boons that's like a 15 health minion. You play this card, but you only have 14 corpses in your stockpile, that big minion's going to stay alive and it's going to hit your face. So it's a good card provided you have the minions to clear, or the corpses to clear the largest minion on the board.
All right, so let's go through all of these again. Final thoughts for each class. Starting with Warlock, what was your favorite Warlock card that we looked at today?
My favorite card for Warlock is the legendary Darkon Drathier, the 8 mana 6/6 that has the added effect of dealing 6 damage to the enemy hero at the end of each of your turns. This reminds me of like you said, you mentioned Ragnaros, I mentioned Alexstrasza. This is a potential finisher for Warlock. How about you?
I love that card as well. I also really like Devourer of Souls. I think it'll be interesting to see what happens with Devourer of Souls with Death Rattle. Um, Knowing that Imp Curse Lock is still seeing a lot of play right now, this could be really good if you can slam Devourer on the board with Lady Darkbane and put another curse into someone's hand. Thoughts on favorite Hunter card?
My favorite Hunter card would be the legendary Halduran Brightwing. If you can get this down early, it gives you the extra spell damage to all the arcane spells that are in your deck. So if this is played early, it has a great effect of giving a lot of burn damage to your hand.
Yep, I like that card as well. And just for the memes, I also really love Scourge Tamer. Everyone loves Build-A-Bear. It's very situational. It helps you build something that might really help you out that you don't have in your deck, and it's fun. What about favorite rogue card?
I think my favorite is everyone's favorite, the non-mana Shadow of Demise. I think this is an auto-clued in any rogue deck.
Yeah, Shadow of Demise is going to be awesome for Miracle. It's going to help out with those burst Edwin turns to build really large ghosts or a really huge cleave or get a really large weapon off of Draka. I also really like the Ghoulish Alchemist. Like I was saying before, I think this is going to take the place of Male Dancer because all the concoctions cost, I believe, 3. So being able to discount that to 0 helps you play out more and get a lot of value in that turn, especially if you can shadow step this and play it more than once. Favorite Demon Hunter card?
My favorite Demon Hunter card is my favorite card of this whole expansion, the Solier Scythe. I cannot wait to get my hands on this card on Tuesday. I'm auto gold crafting it day one.
Yeah, this card was so much fun to play with. It's really great knowing that your opponent isn't going to be able to eat your Jace or your Zymox or your Lady Sathino as a Snicker snack. They're not going to be able to pull it onto the board as is that Mage or Paladin that has Call to the Stand, which basically nerfs your battle cry. So Solar Sky is a really great way of hiding your minions, drawing them as spells, and avoiding some of those terrible facepalm moments.
Yeah, and if you're playing against Death Knight, it makes the legendary card Patchwork essentially useless.
Moving on to Druid. What is your favorite Druid card?
My favorite Druid card is probably Crypt Keeper, just from the sense that I really like playing Celestial Alignment decks, and I think with this card, it's easy enough to make it 0 mana post alignment that you can just plop it down for 0 mana as a 4/6 with taunt.
I'm kind of excited about the Lingering Zombie. I just feel like aggro is. I like aggro more than I like ramp, and this is going to be super sticky. It's the inception of zombies, keeps coming back. So I really like the Lingering Zombie. What about Mage?
I would say the card that I'm most and yet at the same time least excited for is the 2 mana 3/2 Magister's Apprentice. This gives me nightmares of the Sorcerer's Apprentice of old and being able to play a lot of 0 mana spells and just burn you down in one turn.
Yeah, Magister's Apprentice is definitely going to be very strong. I'm also excited about Vast Wisdom. I love the Discover mechanic. It makes each game feel a little bit different, especially when you're, playing a lot of the same deck. Adds that variability that makes each game fun. Favorite priest card?
Yeah, again, I think my favorite piece card is probably my least favorite card for the class. It's Sister Sylvana. I know somewhere somehow somebody's going to find a way to get the spell that you generate off of Sister Sylvana down to zero, and then do some crazy combo, spending zero mana on spell after spell after spell, and just burn you down like from 30 health down to zero in one turn. I think it'll see a lot of play.
I know it's kind of expensive, but I'm excited about High Cultist Basilisk. It just reminds me of all the feels from Nazoth days, and can help res an undead board from either your previous, that died after your previous turn, or that died at the beginning of the current turn, since it's after your last turn. Such a cool new mechanic for this expansion. Favorite warrior card?
Light of the Phoenix. 4 mana, draw 2 cards. Costs 1 less for each damage-friendly character. This is an auto-include in any Enrage deck. And especially for that deck, it'll be so helpful because Enrage Warrior typically does not have much card draw. So this will probably be one of the most powerful cards in this expansion for Warrior.
I really like that, and also Blazing Power. This can be really scary with Fire and Rage Warrior.
Mhm.
Shaman?
My favorite card for Shaman, let's see here. I think is the 1 mana 1/3 Scourge Troll. I think this is going to be a really sticky minion. It's going to generate a lot of value for the player that plays it. We're probably going to see it a lot on turn 1, and then some sort of added effect come down on turn 2 before you're able to deal with this card, and then it'll start to snowball for you or for your opponent, depending on who plays this card first.
Yeah, the Scourge Troll looks really cool, and also I'm excited about Rotgill. I like the fact that there are dual type minions now. I like the fact that it's an undead Murloc, and I can't wait to hear what it sounds like. There are too many neutral cards to go through, but was there one that was stand out to you besides Astalor? I mean, everyone's excited about Astalor and Sunwell.
Yeah, I'm excited to try out Silver Moon Arcanist in the no minion demon hunter decks. I think that'll add a lot of value to that deck.
And I think Hawkstrider Rancher can be really good in either Hunter or in any kind of like aggro rush, like Paladin, where you're summoning a lot of small minions that are cheap, and you can give them all that 1/1 buff. What about Paladin?
I think for me, it's the talk of the town, Anachronos. I see no difference between this card and the Scabs Hero card, where it just clears the board, gives you basically 2 free turns before those minions come back. And if you're playing this on turn 7, hopefully by turn 9 or turn 10, you're in a position where you can finish off your opponent. So I think this will be a really strong card.
I agree. That is going to be super strong, difficult to deal with. I'm also very excited for Blood Matriarch Liadrin. We haven't seen Aggro Paladin in so long, so she's helping it make a comeback. What about Death Knight?
For me, it's probably going to be Vampiric Blood. I think that card has a lot of value because in the Blood archetype for Death Knight, I think I view it as more of a control deck. And I think with Vampiric Blood, if you're able to get a couple of these down, all of a sudden, between Renathal and a couple of these cards, you're looking at 60 health, and there's a lot of decks out there, aggro decks that just cannot deal with 60 health, and I think it's going to add a lot of value to that archetype.
I honestly can't choose a favorite Death Knight card. They all look super cool. I'm excited to have a new class. An unpopular opinion, please don't at me. I love the design of these. I love the dark tones. I think it looks super cool. I used to be one of those nerds in high school who went to Laser Quest. It just gives me those vibes. That's like something shining in the dark. I think those in the signature cards are really awesome, and I can't wait to see those in play. Well, thank you guys so much for coming to our card review for all of the new March of the Lich King cards. This has been so much fun. What do we think about the new special card design? I absolutely love the new colorways on the new cards. Gray is one of my favorite colors. I think they're absolutely gorgeous. I know that's not a popular opinion. There are a lot of people who feel really bad about the new cards, but it's actually my favorite set. What do you think, Toucher?
I feel the same way. I like the gray of the signature cards, and I also like the way it's basically a way to tutor out legendaries from the card packs, because I believe it's a 1 in 7 chance for like a golden pack versus where a legendary in a golden pack is like 1 in 20. So I think it's a good way to tutor out legendaries.
And I'm just going to say in chat, I see a lot of exclamation marks. There's no exclamation mark at the beginning or the end. So make sure it's just DK hype, no exclamation mark. DKHYPE. At least it's not orange or purple. I'll take it. Yeah, I definitely like the gray. I think it's gorgeous.
I think
It
it'll
looks
have a
very
different color for each
refined.
expansion.
You what?
I think it'll have a different color for the signature cards for each expansion. Like this one's
Oh, you
great
think
for the
so?
whole Death Knight and whatever the next one is, if it's a blue or a red or something.
It's definitely on theme, right? Thank you guys again for hanging out today during the card review. This has been a lot of fun. Who's on playing Hearthstone right now? Oh, I think it's Hatrick's birthday soon. Let's all go say happy birthday, man. Thank you again for joining us and hope to see you guys soon. Take care, everyone.
Bye, everyone.